Hey guys, Metal Jesus here. Now, one of my collecting goals has been to try and get as many of my handhelds updated and modded as possible. Specifically, I'm talking about those handhelds that either didn't have a backlit screen, or maybe it was blurry, or both. So in this video, I'm going to share with you the 7 handhelds I've been able to get updated, as well as the resources that I use to do so. Maybe you want to do it as well. Let's take a look. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the Nintendo handhelds, and of course this is the original Game Boy. And if you've ever used an original Game Boy that comes stock, well, they were non-backlit and they were honestly fairly blurry. Now, that's not to say that they weren't amazing for the time. Obviously, this is a groundbreaking handheld and a lot of people owned it. Well, literally millions of people owned it. But the nice thing is today you can upgrade the screen and it just completely changes it. It just looks so much better when it's backlit. And if you'll notice, actually, it's really sharp looking too. It looks great. Now, this particular handheld is still using 4 AA batteries, so it still requires a lot of batteries to make it run. I'm not 100% sure if this new backlit screen actually uses less battery power. I haven't actually tested it. It may, who knows? But it is definitely cool to get this upgraded. Here is the Game Boy Color, and I really like the form factor of the Game Boy Color. Just a little bit thinner, a little bit lighter, only uses 2 batteries, and of course this has been upgraded with a screen. And again, it just looks absolutely fantastic when you're playing games. Now, what's kind of interesting about the Game Boy Color is how many games were released for it. I kind of think of it as sort of a stopgap handheld between the original Game Boy and of course the Game Boy Advance, but there actually were 600 plus games that were released for this. Again, I'm sure that's probably just me, kind of surprised by that, but yeah, it's cool to get Game Boy Color games running on this. They look and play fantastic. It's really nice to have. And as you can see here, the screen has been updated so that it's backlit, as well as the screen is better than it would have been back then because it's not blurry. It just looks great. This particular Game Boy Color just has a screen mod, but there are kits out there that you can buy that also will give you video out. That's a really cool option. Now, if you want to take this on yourself and upgrade your Game Boy Color, I would recommend checking out a site called console5.com, or I think it might actually supposed to be consoles with the 5, but console5.com has a ton of parts for pretty much every system that you're looking for. So for instance, you're looking at the page just dedicated to the Game Boy Color, but again, they cover pretty much every system, both handhelds and consoles, and even computers that you're looking for. I've done several videos on my channel about modded Game Boy Advances, specifically the ones done by retromodding.com. This is definitely one of those. And I've mentioned in the past, I love the form factor of the original Game Boy Advance, but the screen wasn't great on it, and it's nice to get one that is upgraded. So this has a fully backlit screen. He's also replaced the plastic that covers that screen with a piece of glass, so it's much more scratch resistant now. It also has an upgraded speaker, so the speaker is much louder, and it has a lithium-ion battery that is rechargeable in the back, so you don't have to have a bunch of batteries sitting around. You can actually just charge this and use it. It's pretty convenient. Now, what's cool about retromodding.com is that if you know how to do these modifications yourself, you can go to their site and just buy all the parts yourself, save a ton of money. They even have some really cool tutorials that you can follow if you just want to make sure that you're doing it right, or maybe even if you just want to learn. But if you don't want to take all that on, you can have them do the modifications for you. And take it from me, they do excellent work. They have done 3 of my Game Boy Advances so far, and each one of them is just perfect. Next, let's take a look at a relatively new addition to my game collection here. This, of course, is a TurboExpress by NEC, and I got this over Christmas. Now, if you're not familiar with this handheld, it is so cool because basically it is a portable version of the TurboGrafx 16. And you see it right here that I'm actually using the Turbo EverDrive that I got from Stone Age Gamer. So on this, I'm carrying around literally hundreds of TurboGrafx-16 as well as PC Engine games, and they look and play fantastic. Now, what's cool about this is that it's more than just a screen replacement. The original screen was very blurry. This one, of course, is crystal clear, but these were notorious for having the capacitors on the inside fail. So this one actually has had all of the caps replaced. So this shouldn't fail anytime soon. It should last for, literally decades now. And if you're feeling fairly confident and you want to take on modding this yourself, you'll notice here on console5.com that you can buy a kit of replacement capacitors for less than $10. So it's not going to be very expensive to get the parts you need. However, I would caution people in modding this yourself if you're unfamiliar with doing so, because unfortunately this handheld is somewhat collectible and rare these days and kind of expensive. And so I would hate for you to get in a situation where maybe it was damaged or destroyed. It could be fairly costly to fix. Next up is the Sega Game Gear. Now this was modded by a guy who makes a kit that you can purchase on a website, and I'll put it down in the video description below. But his name is Marco, and he goes by McWill on Atari Age. And essentially what he does is create a whole kit in upgrading the Game Gear. And this is one of them right here. So this is really cool because, again, like so many of these, the Game Gear had originally a screen that was incredibly blurry. Again, at the time, it was awesome, but 20 years plus on, it's kind of a mess. And so it's nice having a really crisp, brand new LCD screen in here. There's no more blurring going on. It just looks really good. It's all backlit, looks fantastic. And what's cool about this particular one is that it actually has a video out. So that's what you see on the bottom there. You can actually go VGA out to an old monitor or TV that supports it, which is pretty nice. And if you haven't played a Game Gear, or maybe it's been a while, you might be surprised just how comfortable this handheld is to use. It looks big and bulky, but honestly, it's extremely comfortable, and it's got a ton of great games on it. And then here is the Sega Nomad. And again, this is another handheld that's just so cool. So basically what this is, it's a portable Genesis, and it actually plays your normal Genesis or Mega Drive cartridges. It's so cool. And this one has several cool upgrades, including, of course, the screen. Those 90 screens were just a blurry mess. And so this one is crystal clear. The games play excellent on here, and there's no blur whatsoever. The backlit looks great, as well as replacing the plastic cover over the screen with glass. So that's great for two reasons. One, because it is typically more clear, and also it is slightly more scratch resistant, which is really nice. It holds up better longer. And then this one also has a lithium-ion rechargeable battery on the inside, which is really nice. So you use the power cable to charge it up, and then you can go for, say, 4 or 5 hours on a single charge. So yeah, you don't need batteries. And then here is the Atari Lynx, another handheld that I've covered on my channel before, also done by Marco or McWill off Atari Age. And again, essentially what he does is he creates kits that you can buy to completely overhaul the Atari Lynx, which again is really cool because it's a great handheld that I think a lot of people could probably get into if they just had a better experience with it. And so having a much clearer screen is just awesome. I mean, again, it just brings these older handheld games to life. And from a gamer standpoint and a collector standpoint, it's kind of fun to have a handheld that didn't really get a whole lot of love back when it was new. So it's kind of fun to get a mod like this and then start collecting games for it and having that kind of unique experience. And it's worth noting that there are two versions of the Atari Lynx handheld, and they're very different from each other. So depending on whichever one you have, he has a kit for either of them. So just be aware. Now, if you want to modify your handhelds, I'll put links down in the video description below. However, I do want to warn people that depending on when you're watching this video, some of these sites may be under quarantine, and because of that, they ask that you be a little bit patient when it comes to, say, turnaround times and shipping, things like that, because depending on who is quarantined and where they get their parts, they may be experiencing backlogs and delays and things like that. So just be aware that sometimes it can take a little bit longer, but you can contact them directly and work that out and see what's best for you. As for me and my collection, I think the last handheld that I'd like to get modded would probably be the Neo Geo Pocket Color. It's a really awesome handheld that unfortunately, when it was released, did not have a backlit screen. It's such a bummer because it's got some amazing games. And so I know there are some solutions out there. I just haven't jumped into that yet. But I would love to know down in the comments if you have some modded handhelds, if you recommend some sites that people should check out. Please let us know down in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you for watching my channel. Thank you for subscribing, and take care. The last thing I want to mention is that Marco, who creates those popular McWill mod kits, has been dealing with an issue where there are some kind of poorly made Chinese clones out there on the market that are using his name. So if you see something on eBay and it looks a little bit fishy, I would recommend using the links that I put down in the video description below, because it actually goes to him and you'll get the quality parts.